Hello, guys. Welcome to a little VOD review of Chinese contenders because I know that you're all just so jazzed and thrilled about talking about Chinese contenders. God bless. I'm doing this because I will be out of town for the playoffs for the most part, and I don't think that I'm going to be on the broadcast. I will obviously try to be, but I don't think that it'll be a good look for the broadcast as a whole. For me to just not be on cam and have a very limited feed. So I thought that at least the least I could do is do some VOD review of some of the teams and talk about some of the matches that I thought were really interesting. And to start us off, we'll be talking about Team CC and LGD Gaming. And without spoiling anything, this match is very interesting for a number of reasons. Obviously, both of these teams are locked in for playoffs previous to this match, so this didn't have any playoff implications. But when we look at how both of these teams were performing in the previous weeks, this match being played in week 5, the last week of the regular season for Contender Season 2, LGD Gaming were very clearly the favorites, and Team CC were having a very difficult time with their coordination and overall just synergy as a whole, where we were seeing the front line for Team CC very disjointed from the rest of their team. We saw Yakumo and Kehart having a very hard time finding any kind of ground because of that, and the whole team just seemed to fall apart from the front line, it looked like, which is odd because when you look at some of the names, especially their tanks, Jakirin and Late Young, coming from their background on Miraculous Youngster, it seems very interesting to me that this would be the team that has the kind of issues and communication and kind of positioning and rotational issues is a big one. Obviously, they are the Shanghai Dragons Academy team as well, so we can only assume that they would have a little bit more resources put behind them because they are an Overwatch League Academy team, and it's a very interesting narrative. It's an interesting story to see them kind of struggle within the last few weeks, and it's been very unfortunate to say the least on how they've been playing. But it seems like they've definitely stepped up this match at least. We'll see how they do in playoffs, but we'll see. Playoffs are another whole different hole to go down. And we look at LGD. This is a team that has a lot of promise, and they've definitely showcased a lot of that potential throughout the regular season, and even in this match, a lot of potential, I would say. You look at their DPS line. Shy, incredibly clutch player. I call him the sixth gear because somehow, some way, he always can be relied upon, and LG can shift in to kind of pull them out of a sticky situation. Is he the most consistently hot player? No. He has his moments where he looks a little shaky, but for the most part, he is very strong and is the kind of backbone to this DPS lineup. When Eileen has troubles, Shy is always there to kind of bail the team out in a sticky situation. Now, in that same sentence, Eileen, you can't not mention him, one of the best projectile players coming out of China. I would not be surprised with the reports and with the confirmed reports of Guangzhou as being another Chinese representative alongside Shanghai. I wouldn't be shocked to see Eileen be either reported or to be trialing with one of those teams. I think he's definitely good enough. I just don't know if he is of age. That is a tough one to verify, seeing how I don't speak Mandarin or I can't read Mandarin. Outside of that, they have a very strong tank line with Guxia and Yaoxia. Very solid. Guxia has seemingly been a little bit more comfortable on the Winston rather than the Rhine, but it's not too much of a difference there. A lot of their issues come from their backline, it feels like, where Only Wish is a very aggressive Mercy in the same sense that Altering is a very aggressive Mercy. You'll see him go for reses and kind of a very optimistic positioning at times, and it tends to get LGD in trouble. But those are just some very brief narrative points that you can kind of latch onto as we jump into this here VOD. Let me grab my little epic pen and get into this. So let's get the cursor. All right, let's look at these compositions, shall we? All right. So LGD Gaming and Contenders China as a whole is very keen. This is a very meta composition running the Widowmaker Genji. It's very standard. It might not be standard in other regions, but that's the beauty of Contenders. They kind of have their own regional metas. Team CC, on the other hand, is running your very standard King's Row A defense with the Orisa Junkrat with Widow for pick. Me personally, and what Contenders China as a whole has kind of done, is that for the most part, they've strayed away from this. Or at least I should say some teams have strayed away from this kind of defense on King's Row A because of how difficult it becomes once the attacking team either controls alley or controls the point itself. Once they rotate, normally you see the attacking team rotate through hotel. I'll grab my marker here. Let me see if I can't get a better angle on this. So what they're going to do, normally we see teams rotate through hotel and then attack the point from here. Or sometimes you just see a straight up dive onto the high ground, which I wouldn't advise, but you still see teams do it, and sometimes they pull out victories. Or you see teams rotate through, normally with like a slower composition through alleyway and pressure this kind of staging ground backwards and try to set up a siege from there. Now, what Contenders China, or at least some teams in China, have decided to do, because they have a difficulty of juggling the point with Orisa specifically, what they'll do is they'll just run Ryan Zarya and just control the low ground and kind of forfeit the high ground, which obviously I don't particularly like. But when you have a team struggling with communication and synergy and kind of all being on the same page, I can understand why you'd want to do that and kind of cut your losses. So just a kind of another note to kind of keep in mind when we talk about Contenders China and trying to understand like the lay of the land and the general tendencies of some of these teams. So again, going for hotel control, pretty standard. I'm not a big fan of Eileen's positioning here. Very out in the open. You also saw Only Wish kind of jumping to someone. Who is he jumping to? It looks like it's Gushia, or one of the tanks. So they're just taking point control. They have point control here. They've gotten a tick for free. And it seems like the fight gets turned around somehow, which is interesting. The way that we'll kind of do this is we'll just watch the fight, and then we'll look at the build up there. This is a very long fight. But, kind of typical for a lot of Contenders teams, or Contenders regions, and specifically China as well. Very scrappy, very all over the place. There's lots of skirmishes, and that's Contenders China for you. Lots of skirmishes and fights, little 1v1s all over the map. And it looks like we finally caught a break and we can finally go back through it. So let's mosey on back, shall we? So again, the approach here from LGD is to take point control. It's not particularly out of the question. Yakumo here, I'm not entirely sure why he's on the low ground. I would much rather him sit up on the high ground. Normally you'll see the Junkrat kind of positioned up in this little cubby hole, waiting for the team to rotate through and be able to shell the back of them with with multiple pipes and concussion mines and all that jazz. Now, is it because they're running more of a dive-centric team with Winston, D.Va, and Genji that he's dropping down to the low ground? It's possible. Normally, I think when we see Junkrat sitting up in the cubby, normally they'll stay there because of how a slower composition like Rein Zarya will tend to rotate through here. So it's just kind of giving him a great sight line on the kind of core of the team because it's such a death ball composition. Maybe he's dropping to kind of deny this area of rotation because you're not going to have such a tight death ball kind of push through. It's strange, but he does have multiple concussion mines to be able to jump back up. So it seems like it's just trying to mitigate rotation points, and it seems like it works on Eileen here, where the only reason why I can imagine you wouldn't immediately dash to point or rotate through hotel is because of that Junkrat trap. And it kind of looks like he kind of gets zoned away from the Junkrat here. It looks like he either sees the steel trap or he's like scared of not scared of the pipes, but scared that he has to waste reflect to be able to push through there and challenge the Junkrat. So it feels like he's actually trying to rotate through there, but it is hesitant and ends up kind of giving up a position there that he obviously wants, but is denied by Yakumo. So obviously props to Yakumo there. I think that's really good. But they're kind of plan B from not being able to rotate through hotel specifically, or have Eileen rotate through hotel, seems a bit weak. He kind of just sits in the Widow's sightline a lot. Not to say that there's a ton of things he can do there, but I think that specific play from Yakumo kind of caught him off guard. And again, they're just controlling the low ground. Here, I'm not sure why you wouldn't capture this Junkrat. He seems to be kind of out in the open. But they're very objective focused, it looks like. They're taking it very slow, which is nice. Where is K-Heart? This is another thing that I think China doesn't do enough of, is kind of capitalizing on defending resable bodies, if that makes sense. And it's something that even Overwatch League teams, I think, struggle with. Where are you, homie? Alright, so K-Heart dies somewhere. It looks like it's somewhere on the high ground in this area, just from like where he's looking and how quickly that popped up on the kill feed. I still think that's defendable or capturable by the attacking team, seeing how the Junkrat's on the low ground, so you're not going to get a ton of spam when you dive the body. So I think they were probably able to deny this res, or had that option available to them. They kill Kyo. Okay, where were you, my good friend? There's Widow. Alright, let's look for Yoshi. Okay, so he's up here. The Zen is in this cubby. Okay. So they're committing the Winston to control a point and sending the D.Va to go off on their own. Yakumo flanks, gets multiple picks because they've committed their Winston to the point. LGD, the attacking team, has committed their Winston to the point. Their D.Va's off assassinating or diving the enemy Zenyatta, and everybody else is kind of left with their kind of pants down, and there's not a lot of mitigation there, which is a good capitalization there. I think that's pretty big heads up play by Yakumo, which is kind of uncharacteristic of him. He's been a player that I've been kind of critical of in the past, and I'm happy to be wrong, and I'm happy that he's stepped up a bit because they've definitely needed him. Like I said, Team CC have had a bit of a struggle, so I'm happy to see Yakumo actually step up and have a good performance. Yao Xie kind of just stuck out here on his own. I'm not liking the split between the two. Obviously, you need somebody to hold the point. I want to see where Eileen is here, because I don't know why. And it's not even just the Winston. So Eileen just happens to get picked, which is fair. And then Rika gets flanked by the Junkrat that's been here the whole time. Not much you can do there. But what is strange is that the tanks for LGD knew that the Junkrat was there, but didn't choose to deal with him. Because if you don't deal with him, I feel like this is exactly what happens. You just kind of leave your Zen to 1v1 a Junkrat, which I don't particularly like that trade. Or even that like 1v1 fight. It's surprising that they decide to dive the Zen on a very defensible position, a very resable position. Let's say you do kill him. Are you going to consistently try to take more and more ground from there? I don't think so. Are you going to want to stay here for 10 to 30 seconds to defend the body? Probably not. You have an objective to take, obviously. So I think it was wrong to kind of skip over capturing this Junkrat, or at least pressuring him out and making him use resources because of the easy rotation directly onto your Zen. And not only that, but it seems like again, kind of a hard picture to decipher, but it seems like the tanks are together, which is good, but they separate, which is strange. It seems like Yao Xie is very committed to staying up here, where Guxia goes back down to try and cap the point. And it ends up working out for them because they have such a dominant respawn advantage, in the sense that the attacking team has a very, very close distance to the point off of respawn, whereas the defense is very far away. So when you're taking trades like this, it's always in the favor of the attacking team. So if you just brawl the point and you consistently just trade and trade and trade, you're going to just by proxy end up taking the point. It feels like that kind of ends up happening, because you've got Zen and Mercy holding the point. You've got Yakumo on a deep flank kind of spawn camping. There's not a lot of help for the point in that sense, where it's just basically the supports at this point. So from that, it seems like LGD is off on a little bit of a poor footing, but so far so good. Again, I think it's scrappy. China is very scrappy, but scrappy in controlled senses sometimes, and sometimes poor controlled senses as well. Sometimes they're just needlessly scrappy, I'll say. It ends up working out for LGD here, which you can have like or dislike. Good shot by Shy there. Oh, excuse me. Gotta get some coffee in me. Alright, let's rewatch that one, because there's a lot of things happening there. So the point's capped. Jakirin swaps to Reinhardt off of Winston, which is important. Note, obviously, streets for King's Row. Could do either one. But why is Late Young demeched here? Where are you, my friend? Something to note with Team CC in particular. Late Young hasn't seen much playtime on D.Va. Most of the time he is on Zarya, which you could see on attack. But I want to say, if my memory serves me correctly, Team CC is one of those teams who has dabbled with the idea of just holding the low ground on King's Row A. And I believe I remember seeing Late Young on the Zarya there as well. He usually plays most Zarya maps and doesn't see much time on D.Va. And the only reason why I think he stayed on D.Va is because of his ult charge being as high as it is. But for the most part, I haven't actually been that impressed with his D.Va. His Zarya, historically has been good, and that's translated into Season 2. But his D.Va is lacking, and their substitute, or their kind of other flex tank, Yishin, I believe, his D.Va is much more consistent, but isn't being played on most Zarya maps, and they're kind of leaning on Late Young there, which is an interesting little anecdote. Now he gets popped here, and he is right here, and was pushing previous to this a little bit aggressively. Again, it's difficult to see, but here is Late Young, and you have what looks like 3 or 4 different LGD members kind of looking directly at him and pressuring him accordingly. He kind of gets melted here, and there's no one even close to him. There's no line of sight. Maybe he even, let's say he has Orb. Let's say he has Harmony Orb there. You're not going to be able to, or at least at this level of play, I don't think you're going to even be able to escape through that. You're just going to get demeched, which is a very big detriment to your team's kind of defensive setup on streets here. So again, kind of going back and highlighting the disjointedness that Team CC kind of has lately. Your main tank is swapping, so he's going to be entering or recontesting or regrouping with the team a little bit later. I don't know why he decided to try to hold ground that he really isn't at the luxury of holding. There's really not much of a reason there. It looks like it just seems like a misposition. Maybe it was a miscommunication. He thought supports were a little bit more nearby, and he gets demeched, which is obviously pretty big. Late Young basically getting demeched there puts them at a severe enough disadvantage that you kind of just lose this fight. Basically, not having a D.Va for an entire team fight is serious, I would say. Without going too ham, it's not a good look. So again, not much to say there. Late Young kind of being out of position and giving up D.Va's mech for free. So this third fight, dive a little bit disjointed. Not bad, but just a little bit slow on Eileen. Good bait out, not an overcommitment with the blade. I like it. Sometimes you see people spend a little bit too much time trying to, force through Transcendence, where I think majority of the time these days, if you think the enemy team has Transcendence, it's totally cool to just pop Q and run away. Just bait out the Transcendence. All right, so let's review this. So let's look at the approach. So already, minor quibble. Yakumo uses a concussion mine to set up on the high ground as his team is nearing a fairly committable point, if that makes sense. It seems like he's not ready, and the enemy or his allies are actually ready and willing to push in. So again, minor, tiny little point. He's going to have one less concussion mine to use in the middle of this fight that he could have potentially banked on. Again, the dive could have been a little bit tighter. Valkyrie is popped. I believe Yaoxia uses D.Va Bomb here. Yep. So they're engaging with Valkyrie. They're using D.Va Bomb as a remake? No. Okay, so they're throwing D.Va Bomb. They're engaging with Valkyrie, which I'm fine with. I'm not too keen on the throw of the bomb, because who then... You're banking on the bomb to zone the front line, which obviously it does, because the Rhine isn't going to want to swing into the bomb because that just leaves his team open to the bomb, right? But it's a little weird, and I wish I could see exactly where that's thrown. But obviously we can't see it, so kind of hard to talk about exactly what they're looking for. The dive doesn't find much, and Gushia's kind of out on his own. Because, again, you don't have a D.Va to follow up with you because they chose to use bomb. If the D.Va was there, you're kind of trading frontline for frontline, where you're giving up the back line, which I probably would have been a better trade, if that makes sense. So let's back up before we get off on some crazy tangent. So LGD are going to pop Valk and use D.Va Bomb here. So at this point, your D.Va is kind of useless until she can remake. So that leaves your Widow, your Mercy, well, not so much your Mercy, but your Zen, which is important because you don't want your Transcendence to be completely wasteful. Kind of in the opener, they don't have a ton of damage mitigation or any form of front line to be able to kind of zone away from them. And they're, again, just banking on this D.Va Bomb to be able to zone away for them. And the Valkyrie is used to heal damage that they should be zoning. Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense there. Again, I wish I could see exactly where the D.Va Bomb's being thrown, but I would have much rathered either I think the D.Va Bomb be saved for a remake kind of situation, where the Winston, D.Va, and Genji end up diving and try to pop the D.Va, or maybe even try to pressure the Rhine out. And do something from there. But this Valkyrie, it's either the Valkyrie or the D.Va Bomb doesn't make a ton of sense. And again, it's difficult to exactly pinpoint which one it is. The dive, like I said, could be a little bit better. Could be a little bit, more. What did I say? What do I mean by better? It seems like there's a hesitation again from Eileen, where it feels like Gushia is calling the dive, and he's not. There's, I don't know. It feels like there's a slight hesitation there. They're drawing the Mercy back, which is good, but now it leaves Gushia out in the open. He dives in. I want to say he uses bubble as well. So they're committing to getting this kill. At this point, it's a commitment. When you use both Winston cooldowns, I feel like this is probably... You're looking to kill this person, or at least force Transcendence early so that the Dragon Blade can clean up. But because you don't get either, your Winston dies and you pop Blade anyways. Just kind of a very odd play. With the use of Valkyrie and D.Va Bomb, not a ton of value there, and Rika using Transcendence not to save himself but to salvage the fight. Yeah, not my favorite alt usage here, guys. Not my not my most favorite ever. They're trying to salvage a fight that's very clearly lost and just kind of throwing them away. That Transcendence had no value. Valkyrie had very little value. D.Va Bomb at best was just a zoning tool, which is fine, but it seems strange when you are pairing it with Valkyrie and diving. Just all over the place. Just a very, very strange fight from LGD. This is what I want that last fight to look like. Pressuring the front line with use of ultimates. Jakirin, swinging at flies, my friend. That one was optimistic, I would say. Again, this is I like this pace of this fight a lot better. It doesn't work out for them, but if we picture this pacing of this fight compared to the last fight, I think it probably looks a lot different. All right, let's look at that again. So again, they're engaging on the Rhine. Either they think he's a little bit too far away from his supports. I mean, to be fair, here's Mercy, here's Zen. Obviously, Junkrat is kind of covering him, but he is a little bit away from his support. So if they can burst him down here, it's a nice pick that they probably would love. In response, it looks like Team CC's Mercy ends up popping Valk to kind of catch the engage and try to mitigate as much damage as possible, which I can't say that I hate. I think that's a good use of the ultimate. Jakirin, unfortunately, you get some, you win some, you lose some. That just happened to be one you lost. Wasn't the most accurate Earthshatter in the world, but I digress. I do have to kind of give more. I think a little bit more applause is due for Sentry here. I like this a lot from Team CC. It doesn't, contrasting Only Wish's ultimate, right? And I don't think this is, a slight to Only Wish, but comparing the two ultimates and their value, I like the kind of counter punching that Team CC is looking to do here, whereas Only Wish was looking to engage, whereas Team maybe wasn't on the same page with that. So who dies here again? Not gonna lie, I just completely spaced out. I gotta rewatch that again. Yaoxia, where are you going? That engagement seems very strange to me. No blanket with the D Matrix. You just take a ton of just free damage there. I don't know if he even had it, but if that's the case, then why are we engaging? Why don't we just kind of pace that out, wait for D Matrix, and then engage? Cover the Winston, let the Winston take the brunt. Even you could blanket him on the engage, jump in, use shield to kind of force your way in, and then blanket, or vice versa. Blanket your Winston on the way in, let him fully extend the shield, get the full use out of it, and then work from there. But that whole engage on the way up and the way over, look at how much damage the tank line takes here. So here they start, and they just get shredded. it's difficult to know if Yaoxia has defense matrix here, but I can't imagine that you'd want to engage without it. Questionable tire, to be fair. But guess you secure the team fight, which is a plus for Team CC. Very strange from LGD. Very odd that their tanks are the issue when normally their tanks are normally quite solid. Obviously, I think it's a very DPS centric team, as a lot of the Chinese teams are, a lot of Contenders teams in general are, because it takes a lot of coordination to really let your tanks kind of overshine your DPS. But normally LGD is pretty good at keeping their tanks on the forefront there. Late Young gets to squeak behind. Okay. Alrighty. What is happening? So it looked like Yakumo just used tire to swap. Interesting swap. Let's talk about that. So I want to get to the tire. Yakumo uses tire here. Ooh, I muted the sound. I want to hear a little bit of Chinese. I want to hear some Mandarin. So Yakumo uses tire here to swap. Why is he swapping? Either Team CC thinks that they won't be able to hold B for much longer and they're preparing for C, or they're afraid of Eileen's blade. I think it's more plausible that they think that. Okay, so let me be a little bit more clear. There's a lot of I thinks and they thinks there. I feel like Yakumo's switching because someone on Team CC has called that Eileen will quickly or soon is to have blade. And if we look at Kyo's ultimate charge, maybe they feel like he's getting outpaced by the Genji, so they're looking for a little bit of mitigation there. Definitely kind of a heads up play, and that's one thing I will have to say that CC does really well, is that their swaps are kind of very, very good. They have a very good sense of when and where to swap. There's one clip in particular where I believe it's K-Heart after a very clutch Graviton surge from Late Young, even though he was like super, super massively out of position. They end up winning a team fight with a Grav Death Blossom, and they win it very quickly. That fight just is very over, like 4 kills immediately from that. And then he immediately goes back before the point is swapped back into Team CC's favor and swaps to a more favorable pick off of the Reaper, which, again, very, very nice game sense, very good heads-up play. And I think this is kind of Yakumo's addition to that play, and is very similar in that sense. I think it's, again, very good understanding of this meta and of the game situation, the game state, I think. Again, it's a lot of inferences because we can't know what the player's thinking, but from what we're shown and what information we do have, I think it's fairly accurate. It's either that they don't think they can hold B for much longer and are preparing for C, or they're worried about the Genji. Controlling high ground, I can't say I don't like it. The way that Team CC has drafted this composition, it's not very keen on controlling high ground or having any kind of control of vertical mobility, whereas LGD is. Just kind of a good way to approach this fight. Now, Shy going through there, that's a bit of a bit optimistic. Again, a bit aggressive. It looks like he's trying to bank on the fact that Gushi is making the space for him, so that the Winston dives. Where is the D.Va? Where is Yaoxia? I see you, buddy. Where are you going? What happens when the monkey dives? I think he dives with him. No, doesn't look like it. Okay. I don't think Guxia creates enough pressure in the back to warrant Shy to be able to flank this way and take this aggressive of a duel. The fact that he can see them this entire way is a little bit worrying, that you're going to kind of take this either very close poke at the Mercy or very close poke at the Widow. And I believe that K-Heart's ultimate is on as well, so they can see each other. Yeah, they're both popped at the same time, so everybody sees everybody here. And Shy just mispositions knowing that they can see him, which is very strange. You're kind of just running and into them for free. Now, how does Eileen die? I get... Okay, so to touch on the Shy poke again, I get the concept. I get what you're trying to do, where your Winston dives in. He's probably very keen on using Primal Rage as a very kind of aggressive swap, or a dive. I think he ends up using Leap and Shield again. So that tells me it's an aggressive leap. You're probably looking to either kill someone or just, create a lot of space, so that your Widow can take an aggressive peek. It just so happens that they can see you try to make that aggressive peek and just ignore the Winston and just cap you first. Oh, excuse me. Very uncharacteristic from LGD. They're usually better than this, or at least they have been. To their kind of credit, inversely, they have been a bit inconsistent throughout the regular season. They've been on an uptick towards the end of the season, but for the most part, they have been a bit of a worry. They beat the teams they should beat, but maybe not as convincing as I think they could have. And I think they've dropped one too many maps to teams that probably they shouldn't lose to. Where were you, Guxia? That one seemed pretty telegraphed. Excuse me. Why are we leaving Brig back there? Feels like LGD's just kind of lost. Feels like either no one's talking, or like it's very limited information. Like Shy doesn't either hear or he isn't told that the enemy Widow uses wall hacks. Just very sloppy, honestly. It's not a good look for them leading into playoffs, I'll tell you that. But to be fair, playoffs is going to be on a completely new patch, so who knows what'll happen. Even this positioning's a little bit greedy. He's kind of looking for the enemy Widow here, I think. And you're positioned far enough ahead that if by chance, let's say K-Heart is there and he ends up, picking you, you're not in a resable position for the most part. If Team CC wanted, they could just kind of stand on this mega here and kind of deny this res if they wanted to, I think. And they wouldn't lose much for it. If they were to do that, you could argue the fact that you're giving up cart control, which is fair, but both teams are running slow tanks, and I don't think you can make that split-second decision with such a low mobility team comp that would warrant that kind of being mentioned. But if LGD were running dive tanks still, I think that is a fair kind of point to make. But because they've swapped to Rein Zarya, I don't think that they could make it to the cart in time. And be able to outpace the rotation from Team CC. So Shy again, just being a little bit too aggro for my taste. And then this Shatter. So, okay, now Kyo knows exactly where the Widow was. This Shatter. This is just like a vanilla Shatter. Like, this isn't something that the Brig is set up. This isn't... At least it doesn't look like it. Does she chain whip anybody? No, this is just a Shatter. She goes for a stun, but that's after the... It seems like it's much after the Rhine shield. I gotta be really careful with that, though. Maybe it's not. Maybe Yakumo sets that up really well. I'm going to say that that's Yakumo there. It's hard to see, but I want to say that's his stun as Brigitte. That's opening the Rhine up in his team to the Shatter, which is good. This is not... this is a completely different Team CC, to be honest with you. Yakumo's been somebody who, again, I've been very critical of. I don't know why they're not killing him. He's been a person or a player that I've been very critical of in regards to his synergy with his tanks and kind of pacing with his tanks, even though they've been a bit questionable at times. And to see him working in tandem with Jakir in there is good. It's a good look for them. Now, what's the decision here that they're just ignoring the Brig for? I guess they're worried about cart? I'm assuming the call is cart, cart, cart. Make sure we touch. And the Brig just kind of gets left in the back. And you don't really have good pressure. I can't say that I'd want to commit my Zen to that. I can't say that I want my Mercy to try and fight that because you're trying to heal the Rhine there. But Yakumo kind of inadvertently cuts the team in half. I don't think that's his intention because it looks like he's just trying to live. He doesn't have a ton of shield left, so he's kind of like off on no man's land. But he ends up getting he gets a lot done here. And you see Eileen here kind of split back his attention back and forth. Like, again, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of communication there where you'd think Eileen, he knows that he's there. So maybe it's not communication. You know that Brig is here. You're on. You've triggered overtime. I think you need your Rhine to peel back. And you have to deal with this Brig first. It's either you deal with the Brig first or you completely ignore her and push up as a team, which then just leaves her as a giant flank. I think you have to deal with her. I think you have to take Eileen and the backline and just have to deal with her. And you can't have Gushia push up like that. Like, it's a bit of a gamble, and it's kind of fighting with a knife against your throat, and it puts things on the wire. But this positioning from Yakumo kind of forces you to deal with him, and if you don't, then the pick on only which happens. And Eileen not being able to pressure the front line as consistently enough as maybe what he would have liked just kind of falls apart. But overall, ultimate route, it kind of management from both sides been a bit of a question. But overall, I think Team CC has definitely looked a lot better, a lot more on the same page for the most part, and I think that's a giant kind of a test for a lot of just contenders teams, regardless if it's China, Korea, North America, Europe. If you're playing as a team, if you're playing together, if you're all on the same page and there's clear communication, you're going to stand out and do very well. I don't care if you're an amazing, aimer, if you're, the worst aimer in the world. As long as you're on the same page, you're going to do really well. And that's the kind of litmus test in Contenders, is how well are you going, how well do you work with your team? And Team CC looks to be at a clear advantage there, and LGD is looking a little individual based, which doesn't surprise me. We've seen in the early weeks Eileen take some very aggressive positioning, kind of looking to hard carry. Kind of reminds me of Effect in a way, where it's just kind of their nature to just go for big plays and go, become that hero. But it's abusable. Obviously, if you're going to position away from your team with either, a Strains composition or what have you, you're more subsequent to being picked off and isolated out and, captured. So, yeah, it's a bit of a miss from LGD here. Not my favorite look from them. Very disjointed. Not on the same page. Hopefully their attack looks a little bit better. Or defense, I should say. CC running triple tank with Widow. Oh, maybe not. Are they going Genji? Hanzo Farah. Okay. So they're scouting. They see... So Team CC scouts on attack. They see LGD running your kind of semi-typical defense. I think the idea is still there, where you're holding the high ground. And I wonder about Eileen on Farah and not Junkrat. I know he can play Junkrat. I've seen him play Junkrat. I just don't know why he isn't. I don't know what the idea is here. I get that you probably want a concussion out a Rhine or an Orisa and kind of deny space, or be able to, reposition them closer to your team and pick them off. But what's stopping Team CC from just going back and swapping Widow and really denying you a lot of room? I'm not big on the Farah on defense, especially with how good Widow is here. It's either like a pretty big call out, or they're just not respecting the Widow. Ooh, Lei Young probably died. Ooh. They try to save Lei Young, which could pay off if they can keep the alt charge, but it's... Is that worth? Hard to say, but I want to look at that positioning again. I want to look at the defense's positioning, if this makes more sense on how they're holding and why Eileen's on Farah. So LGD holds the low ground. So again, what's stopping you from running Junkrat? If they're going to run slow tanks into you and try to run past the Orisa with Ryan Zarya, what's stopping you from running Junkrat into this? I think it's the concussive blast that ends up getting Late Young as well. No, it's Rika on Hog. Okay. So if you run Junkrat on the high ground, it's legitimately the same thing as Farah, with a better ultimate and a little bit more zone control. I guess it's probably the same. Steel Trap and Concussive Blast. I'd probably take Concussive Blast there, but meh. Solo support. I don't want to harp on it, and just go too in depth with it, but it's a very interesting choice to run Farah here and not Junkrat. I think Junkrat ends up working a little bit better in tandem with the comp, but I guess the way that they play it, I don't see why K-Heart just can't go back and swap Widow and deny Eileen any kind of ground, because let's look at exactly how the defense is set up for LGD. Their tanks are on the point. Farah is either in this cubby, she can be over here. That's kind of a Picasso. She can be over here, or she's just like in the sky, right? So if a Widow gets on top of, let's say, Allie, right? She just denies everything over here. You can't peek this. You could maybe play over here, but you can't fly around. You could probably rotate to this little cubby as well. But again, you're denying a ton of space there that there's not much in the way that LGD can stop them from just swapping Widow and just denying this Pharah pick. It doesn't make much sense to me. Specifically on defense. I think on attack it's fine, but on defense it doesn't make much sense. Now, Jakiran dives in to save Late Young and his massive charge. And because that opens up the backline, K-Heart gets picked. Is that worth? I'm going to say probably not. That's either some crazy high IQ play to get like your Zarya up. Again, just a little wonky. Bit of an overcommitment to try and save Late Young there. And kind of too far forward. Like, if you get hooked like that, if you get hooked here, you're probably just dead. I don't think the... So there's personal. Your Rhine is nowhere near you. I think in these next couple seconds, you've got a window and your team has to make a decision. We're either going to all go in and try to commit to save you, or we're just going to let you die and reset. And it doesn't feel like they're ready for that. And it kind of is just like, oh, I'll come in. Here comes Jakiran. He tries to save him. Doesn't. And then everybody else is kind of mid-rotate and just gets picked. Bit of a... It's kind of nitpicky, but kind of breaking that down on why maybe they lost that fight. Another thing that Pharahs have to tend to, you know, in the same way that I can criticize Eileen for running Pharah on defense, if you're going to run Pharah into what is basically like a mid-range hit scan with the new Hanzo, you've got to respect the fact that he can just kind of click you and you can die. There's not much stopping them from doing that. If they just hit that shot, you're just kind of letting them. You're flying into that space and just letting them do it that. Again, there's a possibility that he just kills you there. Now, the dive, for the most part, is coordinated with this. You're starting to see the Rhine and the Zarya push up with the D.Va aggression. Or, I'm sorry, not the D.Va, the Pharah aggression. And they're pushing them back, which is good. And K-Heart... When did K-Heart take my advice? After that first fight. So he swaps Pharah... Or I'm sorry, he doesn't swap Pharah. He swaps Widowmaker. Starts to deny Eileen space. They use that kind of air superior... Now that they've kind of locked that down, I think Eileen has got to be hiding. Or either is just playing low ground. I think he's in the cubby. I think Kikuma's actually shooting him there. They use that pick, and I think it's legitimately just the Widow pick in the confidence to know the Pharah legitimately, again, can only play in this area that pushes them and gives them the confidence to push through. Just one pick. One hero swap does this. Smart. Very smart from Team CC. I'm impressed, honestly. This is not the same Team CC, the same Team CC that I've seen within the last few weeks. Very different. Same issues at times, but better. Much better. Gushia uses... Does he swap? Okay, he swaps. Okay. Whew. You probably, like, I think Gushia probably could have saved Supercharger and just taken a really aggressive fight with LGD here, like fight on cart, just try to milk time, and fought with Supercharger and probably gotten a lot more value out of that and not just completely wasted it. Hmm. Okay, we got a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, cameraman, can we pick a dude, any dude, just stay on him for a second. Let me kind of catch my bearings. I think the fight's over. Alright, let's go back. Alright, end of this fight. What happens here? Shine Gushia swap. Cool. I like it. Dive tanks on B aren't necessarily unpopular, but not, I think, the norm. Now, I will note that I want to say that K-Heart is somewhere around here, because the way that LGD are looking, they're all looking down this alleyway. So I want to say somebody's over there. I'm not entirely too sure who it is, but something's over there. I think it's K-Heart on Widow. Very similar to how Shy was attacking on B on their attack. Whereas if, you know, K-Heart dies there, there's no chance that he's getting rezzed. So again, kind of an aggressive positioning. He rotates out safely, but I wouldn't let that become a habit, if that makes sense. It's just overly optimistic and kind of greedy, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, this whole sequence is a little bit wonky. So I understand why he's looking for like a high ground D.Va bomb here, because it does a great job at zoning out Eileen and Only Wish from kind of doing much. I will say no. I think that's fine. That opens up Graph as a possibility, and then it's just trading ults back and forth. The different levels of tanks here kind of bothers me, if that makes sense. Like the way that Yaoxia is taking low ground on Mega, and then Gushia is diving from high ground. I think they're just kind of taking, I don't know. I don't get it. Why wouldn't you dive together there? If you die, okay, so I guess the question is, if you dive together, do you take less damage? I don't think so. Well, I guess technically you do, because the defense matrix is only protecting the D.Va, and it's really not protecting the D.Va at all because she's kind of running into a Zarya, and obviously Zarya can shoot through defense matrix. And the Winston is taking damage, I'm assuming, from the Pharah, which could have been mitigated. So yes, you're taking more damage, and if you would have dived together, you'd probably take less damage, and this fight is a little bit more favored for you. At least you can get more ground taken, I would say. It ends up working out for LGD, huh? Let's see. Tanks are down. It's so hard to actually tell what's going on there because the camera just flops between three to four different people in the matter of like 10 seconds. I'm not gonna lie, it's just really hard to get all the positioning. But we'll venture on to the next one. The next fight. So I think here Team CC is probably looking to engage with Falk and look for a shatter, potentially. Surprising there's no Valk yet. There it is. Yakumo looking for somebody. Looking for Shy for the most part, it looks like. Again, it's difficult to run Pharah here, I feel like. If okay, Jakirin. Not my favorite shatter again. But you tried. Okay, this is just a bit of a mess now, isn't it? So again, Sentry's looking to engage with Valk. The Team CC is just looking as a whole to engage with Valk. You peek around that corner, it feels like you're looking for a shatter, you're looking, kind of scouting ahead, trying to zone the Widow. Does a good job. Valkyrie's up. Eileen gets popped. Where is Late Young? Where are you, buddy? Okay, he's with Ryan, which is fine. Okay, they got first pick, which is good. That finds legitimately no value. I feel like if you take that a little bit slower, maybe you can get that Zen and at least get a pick there, but maybe if you just kind of circle strafe around that point, maybe you just don't. Feels like it's just a giant trade of front lines here. Like if your Ryan's gonna play that aggressively and you're playing into dive tanks, you can't match them. You can't just retreat back as quickly as they can. They're just gonna out rotate you, so you have to just like commit harder, it feels like. So I wonder if Yaoxia went with Ryan to take. I mean, I guess they get trans out of it anyway, so I guess it's a good thing. But Rika trans as well. Oh, I'm sorry, getting mixed up. Rika's forced to trans because of Jakirin. What did Team CC use? They used Walls and Earthshatter for Valk. Walls, Earthshatter, Valk for Valk. Trans. Walls. I guess it's even. What do you build though? It's a bit of a strange fight. I like the zoning though. I like the zoning on the Widow. That's fine. Okay, what do you do here though? I assume he's probably got to know that Rika probably has ult soon, so they're trying to stop that. If they can actually get that pick, it's huge. They don't. Kyo gets killed. And they get dove in the back. Who's up there? Is that Farah? Where's the monkey? Why does he dive back there? This is Gushia. I want to know who this is. This person. Because he is just in the backline for free. I want to say that's Shy. Oh, not Shy. I'm sorry. I'm getting so confused. Forgive me. It's very late. I'm assuming that's K-Heart, and he gets dove. And it's difficult for the D.Va to just give up position to go and defend him because the Rhine decides to go forward. Okay, I think I get this now. Jakiran pushes forward here, gets way too antsy with this Earth Shatter, tries to get the pick on the Zen with Trance, to be fair, which leaves very few resources for the cart. The only big damage mitigation is your D.Va, and she has to basically play in the mid ground, which leaves the Widow completely open. Again, good eyes from... Good eyes... I guess good eyes from Gushia there. God, I'm so out of it. Holy. I am so out of it. Ooh, left the plus on the screen. Oopsies. I'm interested to see what Gushia gets done with this primal if he uses it aggressively, which probably is likely to do. CC swaps dive tanks with Tracer and McCree. Okay. The McCree stops the dive attempt, which is nice. Well, it has the potential to, right? Yakumo kind of gets spotted out there. It looks like they knew where he was going to peek out at, or at least they knew where he was kind of rotating through. Because Zen doesn't know that he's going to be there, but ends up seeing him, which is a little bit unfortunate. Has recall. Yeah, Yakumo probably shouldn't be here. Probably should have gotten out. Could have gotten out alive, to be fair. Now, Eileen gets picked by whom? Kyo. And where are you, my friend? Can we see where you are? we see him at like the last second there. So here's Eileen. And he's dying to a Zen. The only thing, again, just kind of, it's not unlucky that somebody is able to kind of pressure you out of the sky with either a Zen, McCree, Widow, what have you. It feels like he's not respecting them at all and is just taking really, really greedy positions, just kind of haphazardly. Which is kind of on the, you know, par for the course with Eileen. He's a bit aggressive. Or has a tendency to be really, really greedy with his positioning. I think if he doesn't get picked there, I don't know that Guxian needs to use ult. That's kind of a butterfly effect kind of analysis, but if you don't die, then I don't know that your Winston needs to pop ult. Might not need to. He might still need to, but you know, we won't know. Okay, now they're on mirror comps. So K-Heart's scanning for the Widow here, it looks like. He's checking where Widow could be. And nobody knows that Shy is over here. Gets the Mercy. Huh. Which is kind of unfortunate. What I'm looking for here, and I'm not necessarily communicating with you, so I apologize, is that when exactly is LGD committing onto this engage? Is it because of the pick on the Sentry, or is it just happenstance that Shy is able to get the pick as the engage is happening? That's the kind of question I'm asking myself. And it looks like it's kind of happenstance. Because as he swings out, both bubbles are committed. And it just looks like Kyo gets popped. And it's just from the front line, it looks like. I don't know that Eileen does a ton of damage there. Yeah. Yeah, no, it looks like it's just Winston, D.Va there. There's that sixth gear kicking in. Here comes Shy. And the stretch. 23rd hour, he comes alive and starts popping off. Kid's crazy. I'm actually super excited to see him play at World Cup. I think people are sleeping on China. I think he's going to show up really, really big. Surprise a lot of people. There he is again. Where is K-Heart, man? Why isn't anybody clearing that? Like, I'm assuming K-Heart's clearing the same way he did last time, where he's... Oh, no! Full screen. I'm assuming K-Heart's clearing this back path, but nobody's taking this. So they have no idea where the Widow is, and that bit them in the ass last time, where your Mercy just gets popped for free. Where is Shy? Is he over there? I'm assuming so. I think he is. I'm pretty sure he is. That's such a neglectment from... That's not a word, but just an oversight from Team CC that they're clearing the same way, which can only mean the Widow is on this side of the map, if that makes sense, right? Let me see if I can't get a better angle to draw. Okay, this is better. So what CC's doing here is, and they did this last push as well, which cost them that team fight, is that K-Heart's clearing this way, so he's cleared these angles, right? From what we can see from Yakumo's POV, Widow isn't here, so he's kind of cleared these angles, which means the Widow can only be in this kind of area of the map, if that makes sense, right? Unless by some weird fluke chance that Shy's doing some sort of deep flank and they haven't cleared that either, which would shock me. He can only be in this area of the map. He could be on the high ground, he can be on the low ground, he could be kind of towards the end of point B, by the kind of gateway. There's very few places he can be at this point, and they still aren't really capitalizing on that. Obviously, you have to touch cart because you don't have a ton of time left, which is fair. But you only need one person to trigger overtime, and I feel like it's the wrong decision to send Yakumo off by himself. I don't know. You know a general idea where Shy should be, and it doesn't seem like they capitalize on that at all. It still feels very like, I don't know where Shy is. Wow. LGD kind of pulled that one out. Shy, again. I called him the 6th gear for a reason, you know. He's incredibly... Oh, I'm so sorry. That's probably very loud. He's an incredibly clutch player for Team LGD, so... definitely keep your eyes out for this one, and I'll probably call it for this video. It's probably going much longer than what I intended, but to kind of add a little bit of spoilers here, Team CC does end up beating LGD here 3-2, and it doesn't surprise me, to be fair. Team CC looks very strong in terms of their synergy. Their overall kind of game plan has seemed to have leveled up from the past couple weeks. Their tanks are still a little bit, still a little bit disjointed at times, but for the most part, things are a lot more on the right track. They're much more on the mend, and it seems like they're playing with not a game plan in mind, but they're playing around each other very, very well. So until the next one, guys, I'm gonna go head off and potentially go to sleep. So hopefully you liked the video. Like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next one.